Paul says in Ephesians very clearly, chapter 2, verse 12, remember that in your unconverted days you were separate from Christ, excluded from the commonwealth of Israel. Well, we're hearing immediately that we're about to be included in that which we were formerly excluded from. So, we were excluded from the commonwealth of Israel, strangers to the covenants, the Abrahamic covenant, the Davidic covenant, the promise of Christ. We had no hope, and we were atheists. No better than atheists, as long as we were outside the covenant. But now, in contrast, in Messiah Jesus, you who were formerly in that sad condition have been brought near by the blood, the ratifying blood of the covenant in Jesus' death. For he, Jesus, is our peace. This is most important, has now brought both groups, Jew and Gentile, together, broken down the barrier, the wall, the dividing wall. Well, there was literally a dividing wall that kept the Gentiles outside. Jesus has broken that wall down. How does he do it in verse 15? By abolishing, it's a very strong word, abolishing, note carefully, in his flesh, in his death, the enmity. What's that enmity? It's the law of commandments, the Torah of commandments. There's some Torah here which has been abolished, most important. Now, of course, he's not abolishing the law of adultery, the law of killing, the law of lying. That's ridiculous. He's breaking down those laws which kept the Jew and the Gentile separate, namely Sabbath keeping, holy days and new moons, food laws, those things that create that difference. Those were abolished. They were contained in ordinances. Colossians 2:16 and 17 is the parallel to this Ephesian letter. So that in Jesus, in verse 15, he might make the two into one new man, one single united man, establishing peace. Reconcile us both in one body by putting to death the enmity. He repeats it in two verses. The enmity was that law which divides the Jew from the Gentile. And now that's gone. So we are no longer then, he says in verse 19, strangers and aliens to the commonwealth of Israel, but we're now part of the true Israel, fellow citizens with the saints, and are God's household, God's new temple. I note that Paul always says that we are a temple of God. He doesn't introduce us as the temple of God. That would be the building. He speaks of the man of sin in the temple of God, but the church is introduced as a temple, a metaphorical temple, in which the Spirit of God dwells. So it's parallel to the physical building